Glenn, good evening. Participants.
Hello.
Hey, Glenn, how are you?
Good. Is this the condo association meeting?
Very funny. What's going on, Glenn?
Nothing much. I'm just trying to get a bunch of stuff listed. We got I was down in Philadelphia. We had a few guests for the show. So I got a new mattress coming in from my housekeeper. She's dropping it off a little after 7. So I'm just trying to get the old mattress and a box spring out. My neighbor said she'd give a hand. I might have to run from the meeting for about 10 minutes to just get that stuff in. Other than that, we're good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I started the meeting up for Tom, and I'm gonna have to run, so I'm hoping somebody else could come in so I could, just make sure everything's working right. I had to give you the permission to talk. You weren't automatically set
Yeah,
up
I
to
saw
talk.
that. Yeah, I'm on my phone.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think everybody else is gonna be able to log in normally?
Hopefully, the reason I'm on my phone is that my the audio on my computer doesn't really work.
Okay.
So,
Do
and the
you
only
think we're
time
gonna have a quorum tonight?
I think so. Len should be back. Ellen should be here, and Charles. That would give us 4. I take it Tom's not going to be here.
No, he's running a little late. So
Oh, okay.
who do you think's gonna attend?
Charles is usually here. Ellen's usually here. Len is usually here, and Bill's usually here.
Glenn's not coming and Bill's not coming.
Len and Bill aren't coming.
That's correct.
If Len and Bill aren't coming, I'm not sure who the last person to be the quorum is.
Okay.
We only have 6 members right now. Hi, Ellen.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Ellen, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
How are you?
Charles, myself, you are on the committee. Bill and Len can't make it tonight. Who is our 6th member?
Ed.
So if Ed's here tonight, we have a quorum. If not, we don't.
Correct.
How many members do you have on the budget committee?
6.
We're
Okay.
down 1 member.
There's only 6 members of the budget committee? I thought there were more.
No.
No, there's normally 7, but we're down 1 member.
There's normally 7. You're down. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
That's not difficult math, Augie. Come on.
Well, no, it's not difficult math, but I was wondering more like per your charter, how many members does it have?
It's supposed to be 7. Yeah.
Yep.
And we have a
Because you know why, Ellen? I said, how could it be 6? It's always odd numbers, the
right.
boards.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the board of trustees 5, the land uses are all odd numbers. Why would they make a board 6?
So
They just haven't found anybody.
we also
right.
have a policy of if you miss 3 meetings, you're out. And
Right.
this is the 3rd meeting Tom is missing.
No, he's running
Well-
late. It says, don't get Augie in trouble.
Sally's email said Tom couldn't make it.
Oh,
I don't think that rule applies to liaisons. I think it applies to just members.
I think you're right, but it would be nice if we had a village trustee who joined our meetings. It's not fair to you and Dan.
Right.
As much as we learn a lot from you and Dan, so it's good for us, but it's not fair.
Well, first, let's see if we got, let-
We lost you, Glenn.
I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good job, Glenn.
he just promoted me. Yeah, Charles, I would assume, I didn't hear anything different, Ed, I just don't know.
I'm assuming he's joining because he sent an email a little while ago that Bill couldn't join.
Okay,
And he sent out the agenda, so,
you're talking about Charles.
yeah,
Yeah, did anybody hear anything from Ed?
no.
Okay,
But I sent out, after this meeting got scheduled for today, because I know a lot of you don't regularly look at the village email. I sent an email to everyone in their personal email alerting them about today.
yeah. It's not that we don't look, it's just I actually have sent a couple of, left a couple of messages with Cliff. I can't get on the village site because it just takes me to my own Outlook site. I know somebody else had the same problem. He's got to reset it, and I have to go through a different a different platform. That way it goes to the village.
Right, there should be, one of the early emails when this got set up gave the right address. I'll see if
Yeah.
I can find it.
Well, I hit that, and it's that my computer still just takes me to my own, my own email. It doesn't take me to the village email for whatever reason. I know somebody else said they had the same problem, so I reached out to Cliff. I'll get it done in the next week or so.
All right.
So have you looked at the any of the reports?
Me? No.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm not sure which way you want to look at it.
Well, some of it's kind of tough, and it's not anybody's fault. We have a lot of things ordered, but we still have the problem with the supply chain.
Yep.
So like, we just got the 2 police cars that were part of that $250,000 grant from the Dorm Authority.
Yep.
They only came in this week.
Wow.
They had gotten one previous, the other 2 came in. I asked Dan at the end of the meeting, because there's no reason to bring it up during the meeting. It says, "Hey, Dan, are these 2 police cars you've been waiting for like a year and a half?" And he goes, "Yes." So now he can put in for the grant. That's, the 3 police cars and whatever, the $95,000 or $100,000 worth of fire equipment that's part of that grant. And then Augie can get rid of it out of the capital sheet. Yay!
Yeah, it's dwindling down the capital.
Well, there's a couple I asked about. I asked Nora. I says, can we just get the pathway off of there? If you're not going to do it, why don't you just defund it and let Augie get rid of it? Hello?
What'd she say?
She said that's not a bad idea. But, they're still struggling to get capital spending on the budget.
Well, that's why I put together that template, which I don't know if you saw, Glenn, since you weren't able to access the village email.
Well, I'll get it during the week. I'll make sure to get it.
And I could, when we get done, I can email it to you, but it was part of the documents for tonight's meeting.
Oh,
And
okay.
and it's on the agenda. So Augie, I don't know if you took a look at it, but in previous jobs that I've had, we're all fighting for the same money. And it's who's going to get it first and how do you present your case? And one of the things I started doing, which always helped getting approval, was showing what is the risk if we don't do something, as opposed to the benefits of doing it. And I always got the money I was looking for. And I know, Glenn, you were at the work session meeting, I believe it was last summer, when Jerry was going
Yes.
through, that huge list of projects. And he just spoke to why he was selecting certain projects over others and da-da-da-da-da. So the template I put together fits right into what Jerry was saying off the top of his head, but he documents it, gets documented, and it's something put in front of the trustees, so hopefully they can make a decision.
Yeah.
Hello,
Upstairs for 5 minutes.
Charles, you're on mute, I think.
Hi, can
Who's
you guys
that?
hear me?
Yes, now we can. Hi, Ed.
Hi,
Hey.
how's everybody?
Good.
One more and we have a foursome. We can play a round of golf.
No, not me. What?
I might have to take a quick break because I got my housekeeper's actually dropping a mattress off to me.
Okay,
So,
but we have a quorum, so we can get started.
once Charles is up,
Great. A motion to commence the August 2022 Village of Mamaroneck Budget Advisory Committee meeting.
I make a motion.
second,
Do we have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Whose turn is it to take the minutes, Ed?
I guess that you say it is mine.
I think so.
Okay, I'll try my best.
You do a great job.
Okay,
My video is coming in very choppy. Are you
Hello?
guys, do you guys have smooth video?
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay, but I'm on my phone as well, so I can hear everybody okay. So a motion, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from what would have been the June 2022 meeting?
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Great. Okay. So Augie, is that you who are on with us?
Yes,
Great. How are you?
good.
Thanks
So
for
Tom's
joining.
running late and he asked me to start the meeting.
Great. One of the things Tom had shared, as have you, were the reports that gave an indication of where we were year to date with actuals
Right,
versus the budget. And it seems like good practice to just do a check-in, and maybe rather than pulling them up, if you want to just give us an update on how we are trending with the operating budget, and then maybe as a good sequitur into the template that Ellen was speaking to, if you have an update on where things stand with capital projects to date, that would give us some context with that as well.
Yeah.
so for 2022 fiscal year, we're analyzing the books right now, doing year end, and we are within budget. How much within budget is still to remain as we're analyzing right now. We're a couple of $100,000 more than what we budgeted, positive. So we're doing good. The current year, we're doing the monthly financials and we're projecting to end off the year at this point with a profit of 400,000. The capital projects, we've did about, during 22, we did about $16 million worth of work.
Oh, wow.
So in comparison, one of the big projects there is the paving that was done. Part of that paving was funded through CHIPS.
Excuse me, Augie, how much money did you say?
16 million.
16 million. Sorry, thanks. Okay. Since I'm taking the minutes,
Does that include all projects, including water and sewer?
Yeah, those are all projects and some that were left over from the year before that we completed.
Right.
So that's where we are with the capital list. The capital list, as you know, has not been approved yet.
Wait,
So-
so wait, Augie, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in, but out of that 16 million, do you know offhand how much will be debt for the village, not water and sewer, but for the village?
Of the 16 million, how much will be debt for the village? What does that mean?
Or
How
will
much
be-
have to bond if there was no other source of revenue?
Thank you.
Okay,
And
so I would say at least 90% of that.
no, that's a little. Hillside Avenue Bridge is in there. That's being paid for. I think I added it up. It's like between 5 and 6 million right now.
Right, but who's paying for Hillside Bridge?
I'm saying I didn't include Hillside Bridge because it's being paid for from outside sources. 95% of it's being paid by the state.
So we're paying for it and the state's gonna reimburse us, Glenn.
Exactly. Well, I'm just saying for the long, that's a
But
lot of,
that affects my cash flow.
I don't, well, that's a different, that's
So in order to maintain cash flow, I need to issue short-term debt to carry me.
Okay, so let me ask the question differently.
So keep in mind,
Removing cash flow,
keep in
what's,
mind,
yep,
I did not prepare for this meeting. I was asked to open the meeting.
yeah, I know. I said if you knew,
And so,
didn't mean to put you on the spot. So Glenn, you think it's around 5 to 6 million that will be long-term debt?
right now, that's about what you're looking for with long-term debt. But as Augie said, he's putting out a lot of money. So cash flow
Yep,
going to be very tight because you just had another $750,000 worth of projects coming in for the water. You have the finishing of the Hillside Bridge, which I don't think we've gotten any money in for. You have the sewer projects that are finishing up that eventually we're supposed to get about, I think, 3.8 million in grant money, but we don't have that.
right,
So
but Glenn, the sewer, so maybe this is an Augie question. Augie, for sewer projects, does that impact the village cash flow or is that the waterworks cash flow?
no, unlike a lot of the waterworks that are set up in New York State, our waterworks only includes the water, not the sewer. So if you look at Long Island, the different waterworks in Long Island, they're both water and sewer. When we set up our joint waterworks, we only did it for water, not sewer. Village pays for sewer,
Okay,
which I don't know why they did that.
Well, I thought that the sewer was now separate because we're now getting charged separately for the sewer.
right,
that-
isn't there
or
a
the-
separate fund for the sewer?
Yes,
And
So
Whatever-
that debt would go against the sewer fund, not the village general fund, correct?
that's correct.
Okay,
We also have a water fund, by the way, which will
Yeah.
also pay for that debt.
yep. I think Glenn understood what I was asking improperly, but so I'm assuming Glenn, who's the data junkie of the century, is probably close to the right answer for what I was looking for.
And remember, we're only basically 2 months into the fiscal year. I think they're looking for another a fire truck, which is $1 million. There's another $500,000, which they want to do down at the harbor. So there's a whole list of expensive projects on the list. They're supposed to be at least putting it on their agenda, the work agenda for September, to look at what other projects they're planning to do this year, and hopefully look at funding. And for whatever reason, we haven't dealt with the water rate yet. And I know that we're the budget committee, but as Augie said, the funding of the water indirectly affects us, because in the short term, until we put it out to bond, we pay for those projects. And
The
then
water fund and the sewer fund don't pay for those projects, comes out of the village general fund?
it comes out of our unassigned fund. And then we get the money back when it's all bonded, and we try only to bond once a year. Because if we separately bonded, I think Augie could tell you it's like 35,000.
No, I understand that part, but I thought we had separate funds. For that.
Those funds don't have large cash balances.
Okay, so they
Right,
can't handle
so
the cash flow. Okay,
General fund lends money to sewer and water, and those funds respectively owe general fund money because they have to pay for that debt. But we have to float the projects with general fund cash.
got it.
And that's the problem with like the Hillside Avenue Bridge, even though it's 95% reimbursement, you have to fund it and then go and ask for the reimbursement. And it's probably between $3 and $4 million at this point.
Yep,
And then when I get the reimbursement, I pay off the debt that we've issued to maintain the cash flow.
Yes.
right. Yep,
Because we also have a debt service fund.
Yes.
So. And
okay.
so, one of the things that I'm recommending, because it's the next thing coming up, is they're looking to do the water rates. And I mentioned this the other day, and I go, I told the trustees that you got to be a little bit more aggressive with the water rates, because you can't just long-term bond all this. You should be leaving some extra money so Augie can actually pay some of the smaller local projects. That way, when you have that big, $10 million project, you're going to bond it.
Right,
But
but you're saying be more aggressive with the water rates. I can't tell you how many people I know who have been complaining about the size of their water bill.
Yeah, but the problem is it's pay me now or pay me later, because we're obligated to do all these.
No, I understand that, but I'm just commenting. So I think, which is where we were a year and a half ago, and Tom objected, we need to look at any water rate increases in conjunction with property tax increases, because it's the same base of people it impacts.
That's why they've been holding down the rates when they should have been more aggressive. Then it would have been more equal. So at some point, you're going to just hit a wall where they're not going to have any choice, and it's going to be, this is what it's going up.
Yep,
But Glenn, a few years ago, didn't they actually reduce the water rates?
Absolutely. That was when who was it? Irving? I mean,
Norman,
no. It was the one
Leon.
who against Storm.
Leon.
Leon insisted that we had plenty of money, and I went up there and argued with him for an hour that we're going to come down, and to make it look good to the tax, lowered the water rate.
Right.
It was completely short term. They knew the bills were coming, and oh no, this is our gift to the taxpayers. And the problem is, if the money was there, again, this is also flexibility with cash flow. If
Well,
Augie
we
had money
had
to-
purposely raised the water rates because we wanted to try to save a surplus to build a filtration plant.
yep,
And Leon argued that we shouldn't have the current generation pay for future generations, because the
Yep.
water plant's gonna have a useful life of 30 years. So we should collect those payments over 30 years instead of raising the money to pay it off and not issuing debt.
But in the meantime, we have a lot of projects that are local or intermunicipality, but they are not projects that are the filtration plant. And we don't have the money where Augie could turn around and say, you know what, I'm not gonna bond, I have 100,000, I can pay for this project. I can do water line on Claflin or something like that. In order to, to reduce when we're gonna actually have to do the filtration plant, which is gonna cost us 10 million.
Yeah, actually, the filtration's gonna cost us more than that, Glenn.
Yeah, I'm just, putting out a number.
Yeah, because I think
know-
the filtration plant is 90 million.
Yeah.
So 50% of that is Harrison, 50 is Town of Mamaroneck, and
25% is
25
us.
is 25 us and 25 Town of Mamaroneck.
So the only
Augie,
good,
just one more context maybe to share is, do you have the number of where we left off at the end of the last fiscal with total projects?
I'm
I don't know
working
where
with
you
that
make the
right now.
break. You are, okay.
Yeah,
And it would, in this, I'm sure it'll, reflect this way ultimately, but kind of same concept that we were just touching on with looking at it in the context of what's, being financed versus, ultimately reimbursable components.
right.
well, you have a couple of different things, Charles. I separated, we have the sewer projects, we have water projects, and then we have projects that come out of the general fund. You have projects and you also have purchases. And you probably got about 25 of them right now. You have things like we have a new sweeper. We have a front end truck. Then we have projects like, the Hillstride Avenue Bridge, most of it's being reimbursed. We're doing upgrades on the meters, that's covered. We have a playground that's being done, that's covered. The problem is, once those two are done, those funds are basically empty. And then we have projects that we've been working on, like the docks. We have $100,000 we spent on the docks. They're coming back more for us. But if you add up, we have the dog park they're talking about, it hasn't been approved yet. We have $720,000, which was approved recently. That's for all the emergency equipment that we need in case of future floods. So there's quite a few items on there. Hello?
Hi, we're
Yep.
here.
And Augie, you started to allude to, with there not having been a capital budget that was, formally adopted, and, obviously there's a working document. But what is the parameter, for this year as to where to draw the line, if you will? Is it the, historical precedent, some of the guidelines and the framework that, we put together that, in many ways is, reflecting precedent, state guidelines, and then, precedent across other municipalities, but where you guys know to draw the line where it would be too much, if you will. I'm sorry, did I lose you guys?
No, I heard you.
Sorry, yeah, and that's a loaded question, but if it's being tracked and
Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
I got you now.
Hello? You got
Hi.
me, Charles?
I can hear you.
All right, so I take a look at the P and L and I keep track of that, and every month I report to the board where we are with the P and L. As far as capital projects are concerned, our constitutional borrowing limit is 255 million. To my knowledge, nobody ever set a line in the sand saying this is how much money we're gonna borrow per year. So I really can't answer that. I don't know where it's gonna stop. I mean, as of the last 2 years, I mean, a lot of things have been different.
So Augie, at a couple of the meetings, Tom has said that the board does need to decide not a dollar amount per se, but a percentage of the operating budget for debt service.
You're looking to schedule a meeting to discuss that, to see what direction.
But they have to make it, it can't be a free-for-all, and they know they have to make a decision.
Well, in the absence of a policy or a decision, it is a free-for-all.
Yep.
And I think Glenn gets up every week and says it, we're spending money on this, spending money on that.
See, the problem they have is, yeah, you have capital projects, but in the past, not every capital project was bonded. There would be money at the end of the year, and then Augie would pay for certain capital projects with bonding, and then he would have surplus, and he would spend certain capital projects would be paid out of surplus funds. And you simply can't pay for fire engines, police cars, fire chief car, village manager car, sweeper, front loader, and everything with wheels, and then still have money left over for like the dredging that they put in place is 1.3 million. They got a 2.4 million. They probably spent about 500,000 of it on refurbishing the village hall. So you have, Halsted Avenue, they're looking at $4 million in a year or two. Those are the projects that need long-term bonding. There should be in the budget, it could be $1 million, it could be 1.5, some number that goes basically goes to the capital fund in order for Augie to pay some of these other projects down. But that has to be built into the budget, and right now we're
Yeah, but Glenn, it's also built into the resolution. Every resolution we go before the board, that this could be funded through the appropriation of fund balance or the future issuance of debt.
but if they have
So,
the but if
Unless
they
the board directs me, it's gonna be the future issuance of debt.
Oh, no, I'm not saying anything about you again. I'm saying the board itself, when they adopt the budget, has to have money that could be used into the capital budget in order to have flexibility for Augie to pay either way, or else Augie's got to bond everything because there's no money there.
Right, so we have to make sure, worst case, we build into the budget short-term debt.
Or it is a capital funding, and at that point, Augie can turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to pay the police cars. Well, the police cars are supposed to go into the operating budget, but like a fire chief's car, or a front end loader or something like that, or software or items like that, Augie can turn around and say, I have an extra $1 million. And you can also use that in case, there's a shortfall. If there's a shortfall, you don't use it. If we actually have a surplus, then there's more money in there. And then, Augie can pick and choose which short-term projects we can pay off with out of the unused funds, and what projects will actually bond for the long term. But, right now, the budget is very tight. We've actually added to the budget because we had encumbered from last year, and we had other items come in. So we started with a budget that was, a balanced budget, and where we're going to take 600,000 out of the unused funds, and now we're up to 3.7 million because we added. We encumbered $1 million for Ida, we added another million for item, and then we added another 1.7 million between encumbered and other items that we added to the budget. So at this point in time, our expense budget is up to 44,729, 867, and we added another 9,000 the other day to it. And at some point, they're gonna have to add another $44,000 to it. Or, whatever, whenever they put the river gauges in, the river gauges came out of the Build Back America Fund from last year. But now we have maintenance of $44,000 a year that, was gonna have to be put into like next year's budget. So that, again, we're 2 months into the year and it seems like every meeting, we've got another pretty penny that they want to get done, and they're just not addressing it.
Ellen, I know you've raised on a number of occasions, the interplay between the operating and the capital budget. And, Augie, from your perspective in managing, debt service and interest expense as part of the underlying budget, if the capital projects start to exceed what was anticipated, what is the tolerance in that context in terms of where the advice to the board would be to have to slow down because we would be going over budget on that component on the interest expense.
But that's assuming a limit was put in place. There's no limit put in place.
Exactly. So I mean, I guess it really comes back
to New York State, they could borrow up to 255 million. I have the cash flow right now to run these projects. If I run into, so basically the way we're doing the bonding is designed to save on the finance fees. So we do them at the year end, but typically when a project is approved, you're supposed to go out and issue the bond for it. I try to avoid doing that because the cost of issuance per each issuance will be over $200,000-300,000 a year. You do it at the end of the year, you're just paying for it once. So I'm not really gonna have a problem managing these projects. It's just the way we budget and the way we're dealing with the issuance is gonna change.
Right, so Augie, let me ask you a question somewhat differently than what Charles just asked. So Glenn just rattled off a whole bunch of stuff that now has raised our budget from whatever 40 million to 44 million. Has that been put bluntly in front of the board?
Yeah, in my financial statement, if you look, I list out all the amendments.
No,
I don't know how much more bluntly I'm gonna put it in front of them.
they just increased the budget by 10%.
Right, and I have that in the financial showing that.
Yeah.
I list it out.
But you're still operating at a surplus. If we're talking about the operating budget, you're still operating at a
Correct.
surplus irrespective of that projection.
correct.
I'm just curious in the context to your point with there's no cap, 250 million. There's no, adopted capital budget with a line drawn as the guideline. So
Yeah,
if,
that's not there.
if somebody decided to, if projects were approved that ended up being, $25 million in financing above what we've typically done, what would that impact look like? And how does that conversation happen where people understand when they're approving, beyond certain limits, what that impact is to the overall budget because of the interest expense?
Yeah, but once again, you keep saying above that limit. There is no limit.
Well, I know, but if I'm a board member and there's no limit and I say, let's approve $200 million in projects, what does that then do to our interest expense and how does that impact our broader budget? So,
Charles,
It's gonna affect the
Because there's-
subsequent year's principal and interest.
we
but which then in turn affects subsequent years' budgets. And
Yes.
again, I'm speaking, I guess the point that I'm making is that we have historical precedent where, you know, nobody's going to go crazy, but not having it modeled because the line wasn't drawn and those numbers aren't in front of anybody because there was no adopted capital budget, that even though it didn't happen a few months ago, I mean, I continue to contend that the effort should be, and I know that's not you, it's, you know, ultimately it being adopted with the information that's at hand so that those numbers can come to fruition in a way where they can be used as a planning tool
Right, but
And-
that's the
and a
last
budgeting
page.
tool.
That's the last slide on my template.
So maybe that's a sequitur. I mean, Ellen, do you want to walk through the template? And, you know,
Sure.
great.
Ellen, has Augie seen the template?
I don't know if he has.
Did
He
you
will now. Are you going to share it, Charles?
I am. Yeah, I'm pulling it up now.
Okay.
Let me just get my dinner. I'll leave it to the computer. Just get my dinner. I'll leave it to the computer.
Oh, what's for dinner, Augie? I'm hungry.
I don't know.
What? Are you eating at your desk? This could be costly.
No, it's at home.
Oh, okay.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Yep. So the one thing that I would like to preface is I put in words, but this is really for Augie, Jerry, and Dan to populate with their words. So to me, the introduction slide is really just setting the stage. So, you know, I came up with what I thought would set the stage. So, we have a 5-year capital plan. It doesn't include any emergencies. There are 62 projects. Totaling 14 million for the current year. 28 of these are priority 1. And the total estimated cost for those 28 is 10 million. Some of these will be funded by grants and not village debt. So that's kind of setting the stage. So if you want to go to the next slide. So here is where, we get the input from Jerry and company of based on whatever percent of the operating budget we can have our debt service to be. But let's stick with Glenn's number of 6 million for bonding. And, the village staff is proposing these projects to be done based on their prioritization, the weighted ranking, and really can it be done within the time frame based on all resources and taking advantage of external funding. I should probably add a bullet here about cash flow, as Augie was just walking us through, but.
Ellen, do you want to add, overall project weighted
How you doing?
ranking, a bullet that, the state
If you-
prioritized, state
Outside, my-
prioritization being incorporated
Wait,
as
say that.
well.
I
I'm not
brought the
under-
mattress out, not the box spring. Okay.
All right, Charles, I didn't get what you were saying.
Do we want to add we probably should add a bullet, or unless I'm missing it, but overall project weighted ranking is utilizing the department head prioritization, but also, the weights, provided by the state controller that, we included.
No,
in,
because
our
there's a
guidelines.
later slide addressing that.
Right, but okay, but it's not mentioned here as part of the project selection process. I mean, do you want to add it?
I don't think we need to, but let's go through the whole thing and then go back and see what needs to be added. But I do think what we do need to add here is cash flow, available cash flow.
Yeah, I just want to be careful not to imply that this is limited to department head staff prioritization, because if you ever end up with a staff that, is not, making decisions based on, you know, priorities set forth by the controller. And yes, you don't have to, but if we get away at any point in time of actually ranking by true priority, whatever that may be,
Yep.
we want to be able to refer back to that there are, you know, recommended guidelines for how you set your priorities.
Okay, so I'll do a reference C slide, whatever slide I have it on. But again, keep in
Okay.
mind, this is my wording and not necessarily what Jerry would put together. So if Jerry and company are proposing X projects, he needs to explain what that selection process was.
Yep.
I'm throwing out suggestions, what it could be. I mean, that's the problem with me putting the words in here. Because, you know, I don't want Jerry and Dan and Augie and whoever else to think I'm boxing them in. They're picking X projects and they need to explain what that selection process was. Whatever it might be.
Yep.
Yeah, right
So
now, I
what
think that-
could, hang on, what I could put in here is the selection process was primarily based on, and then underneath, like in red, some suggestions, you know, examples. But it's got to be what Jerry based it on. It can't be what we think he should base it on. Because at the end of the day, Jerry is the one putting in front of the board, this is what I want approved for the current year. And he has to be able to explain why.
Yep.
All right, so I'll do an annotation up top. Okay,
Yeah, I was
Okay.
just
All
gonna
right,
say, currently, what happens is the heads of the departments submit their wish list of projects they need to Jerry. And then Jerry has a point system he uses to
Mhm.
prioritize projects.
Yep.
But the problem is not everybody understands what his point system is, but that's what he does. He prioritizes, then he presents it to the trustees. But what's been going on is the trustees never go back and look at the list and actually prioritize and go over the list with them. So then it becomes whatever project gets to the trustees first, that's the one that gets passed.
Right, that's why I'm recommending this. So I go back
Yep.
to the meeting you, Ed, and I attended last summer, where Jerry was very clear and said, he rattled off a handful of projects. I recommend these projects be approved, and this is why. All this document is doing is taking what Jerry was very capable of speaking to and documenting it and getting it in front of the board. Because I think if you put, you know, that huge list in front of the board, it's too much for them to look at. And I'm not criticizing the board. I think it's too much for anyone to look at and make sense out of. Jerry
Yeah.
and the department heads have their pulse on what's going on in the village. So let's do a succinct proposal to the trustees.
Yeah,
And
but
this
I-
should be
I-
included as part of the annual budget process.
I think with the piece that's missing in all this, Ellen,
Yep,
is that the point system has a board ranking system as well.
yep,
And the piece that's missing is the board's not ranking these projects with what they want done. So of
Well-
the 7 criteria, the one that's missing is the board's trustee selection.
A great point. I mean, I'd really like to reflect that in the minutes, and if you don't want it coming from
So the lack of
you,
the board.
I'll
giving
put a
a
bullet in there
selection,
for that. I'll add that.
You know, Jerry's moving forward with the projects he believes are important. So the sewer project is a mandate.
Yep,
All mandates, you know, or state orders come first.
yep,
Then he does whatever projects are to preserve human life and safety. The next in order that he does is, you know, infrastructure that needs to be replaced, capital equipment that needs to be replaced. I mean, the last salt truck, I think, was 35 years old. The chassis was completely rotted, so that's what makes his
Right, so
decision.
Augie, what you've missed at some of our other meetings, and I'm not criticizing you, is we strongly believe, and we've seen it in emails from Jerry, I'm sure you're in agreement, that the Board of Trustees need to approve a capital plan for each year.
Yes, yes,
So, because, in theory, an operating budget isn't just something fiscal, it is a working plan for the year. And that working plan includes capital projects. So that's why we're proposing, or I was proposing,
and that's
putting
also,
something-
Ellen, where the 5-year planning kicks into it as well.
Yep. yep,
That's why it's necessary
Absolutely.
for them to vote on that.
Yeah,
Because
no,
that,
but that's why I
that
was-
1 year is part of a 5-year game
Yep.
plan.
so what
Absolutely.
what
And-
I'm recommending is, if everybody's in agreement, and most importantly, the board and Jerry, that during the budget process next spring, this be submitted to the board and gets approved. Whatever, Jerry's recommending gets done, gets approved at the same time the operating budget gets approved.
Yeah, because it's 2 years in a row where it hasn't. And,
Yep,
we've seen examples of what, Augie, your team, you and your team have put together where, the identified priorities were consolidated, the line was drawn. There was a 5-year context, and that was never voted on. And then it kind of reverts back to, you're just back to the full list and nothing being adopted.
and it
So
it
to-
shouldn't be a process where whoever gets to the board first and pleads their case gets the project approved, because that's looking at things as a standalone, not in totality.
The other thing is that when you're doing, when you finish doing the adopted budget, and then all of a sudden, it's surprise, we have 8 projects that we didn't list in the capital budget that need to be done right away.
Yep,
And, well, maybe you wouldn't hire a couple of people in the operating budget if you realized you had all those expenses that were about to come. So the ink isn't dry on the operating budget, and all of a sudden we pass, $1.7 million worth of projects for the capital budget that you can say they were emergency, but they were known in January, February, March, and all of a sudden in May, right after you adopt the budget, all of a sudden, oh, this has to be done immediately.
yep,
And that's what happened with the dredging. That's one of the things that throws your capital spending out of whack. Right now, what we do, and I mean, it's gonna go up, but we pay off $1.7 million worth of principal. Anything that we go over, if we have to pay $270,000 between principal and interest, that's going to raise the budget 1% after you do $1.7 million worth of projects.
well, not to mention all the interest rate hikes.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm saying between principal and interest, because right now we pay $27 million in property tax. So if you have between interest and dividends, if you go from 1.7 million to $2 million, that means you have to increase next year in the budget 1% of what you're collecting in property tax.
No, but
But-
Glenn,
but-
I'm
but-
saying it's
but-
worse because of the Fed rate hikes.
Oh, no, yeah, I realize that. It's
Yep.
whatever the formula is. Augie can tell you that we're borrowing at 4% as opposed to 2% now.
But
he would
at
know what the
times,
rates
when we're doing the operating budget, at times, there are gonna be years where we have to go over the 2%.
Oh, no,
In
no,
order to meet the 2%, you can't pull police cars out of the budget. You can't
Yes.
pull, emergency equipment out of the budget just to get under the
but
2%.
I realize that.
So
All I'm
this is
saying,
part and parcel of the problem with budgeting.
Yep,
Yes.
We know that the Army Corps has said that you need to have a budget of at least 350,000 in your current operating budget to maintain that river. We've
Correct.
known that for the last 10 years. So, you know, this has never come to the floor. Everybody said, hey, Army Corps said, put in the money, let's start a river maintenance program. We know it's there. We know we've been told we need it. They projected it for us 7, 8 years ago. It's gonna be 350 a year. Due to cost of inflation every year, it should probably be at 400 right now.
Right.
That's close to 2 basis points. It's just not in the
Yes.
budget.
Yeah,
So,
look, Augie,
Passing,
you're talking,
passing all this down. No, but Glenn, you're saying, how did all this money suddenly appear? These are all items that, the board kicked down the road.
oh, no. Augie, I am quite aware of that. What my big thing with the board is, you have to come up with funding. No matter, if you have to raise property tax, you have to raise property tax. If you have to raise fees, you have to raise fees. One of the things I keep telling them is, right now, we write parking tickets. We break even on writing parking tickets because of the cost of the people who do the tickets. Well, if that has to be addressed, then instead of $25 for a parking ticket, it's got to be $35.
See, but
You
Glenn, a lot of the surplus we were able to do because this is how we were planning things. We wouldn't buy another fire truck until this current fire truck was paid off.
Yeah.
And then we'd put in the budget, the new fire truck.
Yeah.
So we'd have the funds. So there was never a change in debt service, but we'd get trucks every 5 years. Now they might be ordering 2 trucks in 1 year.
Yes.
That's what trips us up a little bit.
Yeah, and I realize you have supply chain problems because you're getting things 2-3 years after you ordered them, which is kind
Correct.
of messing you guys up too. No,
It is, but what happens is even though we're not getting them, we should budget for them. And
yes,
the money that we didn't spend in that service, that should be going into a deferred account. So
Yep.
when we do receive the truck, we have to start paying for it. The money's set aside for it.
I
and
agree.
that was my point about having that extra money going into the capital budget as part of the operating budget, so that money is there for you. They have to
One other
budget
thing.
that money to be there.
One
Like,
other
can
thing I wanted to put out there is in the other direction, that by not having a capital budget, you can end up spending less in the year than you should have across what was needed, because you're not being held to a target, and then you're coming up short. So that that can happen.
That's actually a great point. I mean, especially in this village,
Yes,
we turn over managers every 5 years.
Yep,
So during that turnover, that particular year, probably nothing might get done. But that's necessary infrastructure work that needs to get done. If there was an
Yeah.
approved
Yeah.
capital plan, it would still have to move forward.
correct.
and that's how you fall behind 5 years with paving. All of a
Yes.
sudden, we're gonna balance the budget, but we're not gonna do any maintenance on the streets. And then eventually you have to do it. And now all of a sudden you're in a cash crunch, because where are you gonna get the money?
I think I've said this at previous meetings, but if not, I'm saying it now. There has to be at least 1 year when we bite the bullet and go over the 2% and include everything that needs to be included, which will then help level off that 2% increase in future years.
Right, but in the years,
Absolutely.
and that's a great point, Ellen, and you gotta keep in mind also, in the years that we do need to increase either the tax rate or appropriate more from fund balance, we should do so, as opposed to taking things out of the budget that we're
Correct.
gonna need every year.
Right,
you
and-
buy-
Absolutely.
And to
you buy
Glenn's
3 police
point, the
cars
minute
every
the
year,
budget
they
is
operate-
done, people
Well,
go and
those-
ask for more money. So what's the point in taking it out of the budget if it gets put back in at a board meeting?
Right, but if you buy 3 police cars every single year, that's
Yes,
an operating budget item. That's not a one shot.
Yep,
right.
Can't take that out. It's unacceptable.
yep. I
Yeah.
think we're all in
Augie,
agreement on that.
you were there this year, and I went through the whole budget, and they put just about everything in, and next year they said they're gonna put the police cars in. But I mean, we had to fight tooth and nail to get all that stuff back into the budget, if you remember.
You're absolutely, you did a great job with that, Glenn, but my whole point is that The year we took it out was the year that we went to the board and we said, hey, we
Yeah.
want to increase the appropriation of fund balance. So we could
Yep.
balance the budget, not increase, go over 2%. Board said no.
Yeah, one thing I also wanted to put out there for the record, and I'm not implicating anyone with this, but if there's apprehension about committing to a consolidated line being drawn at a number, rather than a long list, and nobody can arrive at a decision what that consolidated number and list of projects and projected projects is, I think it's worth reiterating, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you are obviously not bound to do that. It's a budget and a framework. And if that's driving apprehension to be able to move forward with, consensus on adopting a consolidated list, I think that point should be clarified if it's not clear to everybody that, maybe the optics are binding and politically it could be binding, but in actuality and legally, you're not bound to have to do that.
Yeah, but Charles, there's also the fact that they're not trusting the numbers we're projecting.
That's the problem.
Mhm.
If you look at last year, the board insisted we were going to come in low on sales tax. And they dropped our projections of sales tax. Right now, this year, I'm $1.5 million over what we budgeted.
When you say this year, you mean the fiscal year that just ended?
That's correct, Ellen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, that's because the board was insistent that we're not going to bring in that kind of money. Ultimately, I have to, it's their budget. Whatever they adopt, we have to go with. But if we're telling you, you're going to bring in, 500,000 more and you lower it. Now, we finished off 2022 with, I think, 1.2 million in excess.
Yeah.
In sales tax alone.
How much an
Yeah,
extra?
and ultimately, when it's cart before the horse, but when you're ultimately able to arrive at being able to put a 5-year plan together and then a corresponding cash flow, and you're looking at start dates for projects, you can hedge risks, and if X number of projects are projected to start in the second half of the year, you're going to have a better idea of where you're trending with your revenue halfway through the year.
Absolutely. And that's how we do it. But the problem is that we have a very smart board who attends a lot of seminars, and they listen to the New York State Controller speak, and he might be referring to a county or a city. And they think it also reflects upon us. We're completely different from a city or a town. So if they're going to run into sales tax issues, not necessarily we're going to. And,
Right.
it's problematic when they start projecting what numbers we should be at. Because they're not doing any run rates. They're not doing any historical values. So how are you getting these numbers from a seminar you went to?
Yeah.
And I mean, in the event that the sales tax, projections end up being wrong, I mean, you can still, reflect via debt service what that impact would be. If you were $500,000 short on sales tax and you had to finance that component, what would that impact look like? And just seeing the impact of that interest expense, and that it might be more nominal than people think it is.
Yeah, but Charles, my
valuable.
revenue projections are 5% short of target. So my
Mhm.
numbers are very conservative. You're going to bring in more, but they're going lower than me.
Yeah.
That that's where I run into issues. Now, if you're going to lower the revenues, you have a choice. You either have to increase appropriated fund balance, or you have to reduce expenditures, and they go after expenditures. I got to tell you that the budget's pretty lean. It's mostly salaries.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's salaries, benefits,
Right.
insurance, and equipment costs. The occasional paper clip.
benefits.
Yeah, I said benefits. Yep.
And,
can
and,
we-
and it says that's why one of the things I said was if you turn around and you budget to put money into a capital budget, if you have a shortfall, you can always put less money into the capital budget that year. That way you don't have to touch your operating expenses.
Yep. All right, can we keep going through this since it's now almost 8 o'clock?
Absolutely.
I have to go soon.
Right,
do you
that's
have
why I
any-
wanted-
any questions for me? Because I kind of had promised the family to go out tonight.
I would love if you could hang on for a couple of more minutes. I would love your input
Sure.
on this slide and the next slide.
Absolutely, for you anything.
Okay. So here on the recommended projects, I've got the project, the total cost, the funding source, which will speak if it's a grant or the village, how long the project's gonna last, why this project, what the risk of not doing it is, and the year the bond's gonna take place. And that will speak to your cash flow issue.
So let me understand, this form right here
Yep.
is in addition to the current capital project we're putting together?
Yep, so this would be the however many projects Jerry is recommending be done in the current fiscal year.
But
And
he
I
does
can-
that, he does that in his capital plan.
But this is to put in front of the board and as a single piece of paper for them to look at. Does he do something like this?
He gives
One-
them a capital budget to look at. And he tries desperately to have them schedule a meeting so he could discuss it with them.
Right, but when you say he gives them a capital budget to look at, does he lay out specific projects and say, these are the ones I want to do and this is why?
These are the specific projects I want to do this year.
He does do that.
He does do that. So
You had pulled that.
in
that-
all,
was
in
that
all
the
due, in
Excel
all due
file you pulled?
respect, this is just another sheet we're gonna prepare that they're not gonna look at.
All right. All right,
Was
let's
that
go to,
was that the Excel file that you had pulled up that time as an example, Augie?
Yes,
That it was
Yes.
what was basically a
Yes.
one pager. It was
Yep.
kind of what we've
it
been.
was like, it was 3.2 million he asked for authorization to do, and
Perfect.
they kept it on the agenda for 4 or 5 months and then never looked at it.
right, but again, we're recommending whether it be that page or this be part of the budget process, not separate from the budget process. And that's
And
what's
you-
key to all of this.
Right, and even if you make, our capital plan is part of the budget process.
Right, but they don't
And-
approve it. What?
And they don't approve it, so even if you make this part of the process, it's just another sheet we're preparing.
All right,
Although I like the
let's-
colors, they're very nice.
all right, before you go, let's go to the next slide, because that's what Charles wanted. How the debt service impacts the budget. So Charles,
Okay.
I'm not sure if I captured here what you were hoping to get. So we have total current bonds outstanding, what new bonds are being issued in that fiscal year, what the current debt service is, and what the new debt service is. Charles, is that what you wanted to get to in your cash flow?
Yeah, I think this is great. Adjusted debt service is what again? The last line?
That's current plus new.
Current plus new.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then again, it's cart before the horse, but ultimately, off of a 5-year capital plan, an underlying cash flow model, which is a lot of work.
Well, no,
But,
this isn't
you know-
for the full 5-year capital plan. This is based on the village has said, starting in 2023, we want to do X projects. And some of them are multi-year, so they may not be bonded until 2024 or 2025. So this slide relates to the slide before. If you approve this handful of projects, this is the impact to the operating budget.
Yeah, Ellen, you're right, because that would be the focus of a cash flow model, ideally out of the gates anyway, would be to focus on the cash flow in the context of what's being issued via bonds and keeping the other projects out of that. So yeah, I mean, I think it.
So I'll clarify in the title that it relates to recommended projects.
And Augie has a
So,
Augie has running
okay,
total
so
of
I get it.
what he's paid on projects and what he's going to end up bonding in a given year.
Yep,
So Alan, can
So-
you go back one sheet?
Yep.
So the total current bond outstanding per year up to 26, 27, I could do that, no problem.
yep,
The new bond issuance is predicated on them approving a capital plan.
absolutely, absolutely.
So this is kind of putting the cart before the horse because I can't prepare this unless they approve a plan.
Okay, so what this is, Augie, and I apologize in advance if it's giving you more work. So this is saying Jerry and company have recommended these 6 projects. And this is the time frame when it's going to be bonded, the costs. So I believe you said once before, if it's a multi-year project, you don't bond it till it's done.
If it's a multi-year project, we don't bond it until it's complete.
Right,
So so now I have an adjusted total. That's the sum of the current and the new bond issuance.
right.
The current
And that
debt
new
service-
bond, hang on, I'm sorry, Augie, that new bond issuance is what's relating to the recommended projects.
Right, so the
Okay.
current bond service would be relating to just the bonds outstanding. The
Yep,
new debt service would be the bonds outstanding plus the new bonds
correct.
issuance. Gotcha.
Okay,
And what
And
is the
that's-
adjusted debt
Uh-huh.
service? Is the difference between current and new, right?
the adjusted is the total of the current and new.
It's
Ellen,
the
why
delta
we-
between the new and the current.
Yeah,
Okay,
No.
gotcha.
With the delta or
Yeah
the,
or
or
no?
the, or the total?
no, it's the sum.
The delta or the total?
It's the total.
Why would you want the total?
Because I have my current debt service of $10 and I'm adding 5. So that
So-
fiscal year budget has to have 15.
Right, so let's say for 22, 23, your total current bond outstandings are 10 million.
Yep,
Yes.
The new adjusted bond issuance for 22, 23 is 2 million.
yep,
And the adjusted total now is 12 million.
22. No. Oh, 10 and 2 is
10 and
12.
2 is 12.
Yep.
You were making fun of my math.
Yeah, no, I thought you had said 20, not 10. I
So
apologize.
the current debt service would be the debt service on the 10 million.
Correct?
So let's say that's.
Let's say it's, make it
2% of
3,
10 million.
so make it 2.
And the new debt service, that row right there, I believe should be the current plus the new issuance, what the debt service should be. So it would be debt service on 12 million.
Oh, no. I'm referring to what we're adding. So that bottom line of adjusted should be total.
So are you in Excel right now? No, that's not Excel.
No, that's PowerPoint, but I did it in,
There's one item missing here. You have your current bonds outstanding, but then you have to minus the bonds that you're paying off, and then you add your new debt. In other words, we're going to be paying off $1.7 million worth of bonds this year. So the first $1.7 million that Augie would put out this year would be the same. The only difference would be the difference in interest
Yep.
rate.
yep, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so what I will do is I'll add the retired bonds as a line.
Yes.
Retired debt service as a line. And I will change in both cases the word adjusted to total or grand total or something. to make it clear. Yep,
Oh, Ellen, my big question is though, why are we calling it cash flow?
the debt service shows the cash flow, how it impacts the operating.
Why don't we just say projected debt service?
We can,
Yeah,
To me, cash flow is confusing.
okay, that's fine. That's why I sent it to everyone.
And that's why I read it.
and Augie would actually have this before the actual budget, because I think normally September, October is when Augie goes to the board and he has his list of what he's gonna bond. And then I think it goes out to bond like January, February is when we actually get the bonds. And at that point, you know, you not only do you know what you bonded, you know the number of years that you bonded. So you know what the payment is per year.
Right.
Because some bonds are 5 years, some bonds are 10 years, some bonds are 20 years, some bonds are 30 years, depending on the project.
Yep. All right, I think we need to let Augie go because he has a family obligation.
Where are we going to eat, Augie? What time can we meet you?
Well, my
I'm
wife
sure your
made
family
something
would-
quick because I wasn't able to go out to dinner, so now I'm trying to get them ice cream to make up with everybody.
Oh,
boy.
come on, you can still take them to Pizza Gourmet. They're open until till I think 9:30.
No, she made dinner already. That's what I'm saying. I got stuck
Oh,
on Zoom, so
okay.
she made dinner already. Yeah, nothing fancy, but now I'm trying to bring them over to ice cream. Carvel.
That
All right,
sounds
so we
great.
owe you,
And
Augie.
If you,
Let you
Augie,
get
if
your
you
dinner,
haven't been to,
Augie. I move to
Augie,
let
if you
Augie
haven't
go to
been to,
dinner.
Augie, if
So I'm
you
gonna
haven't
leave the
been to
meeting running.
Spadero's
I'm
in
sorry, Charlie.
Rochelle,
Yeah.
if you haven't been to Spadero's in New Rochelle for Italian, it's pretty phenomenal. They're right off the boat and it's pretty awesome.
I gotta tell you, we're simple. We go to Pizza Gourmet.
Your
Yeah.
The
food's
kids can
good.
make a racket. We don't get,
They're great.
nobody bothers us. I get my pasta fagioli, I'm happy.
You know, I get a 20% discount because they got a picture of me eating the pasta and it says El Grande Gringo approved.
Nice.
All right, so I'm
That's
gonna leave this
classic.
running. If you have any questions for me tomorrow, just email and I'll get it to you ASAP.
And
Thank you
Augie,
so
I'm gonna copy you on the changes I'm making on this document,
Please do so.
so you're in the loop.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Augie,
Good night,
for your
all.
time.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Yeah, motion
If
to
there's
adjourn.
anything you think you need from us, Augie, feel free to ask.
Lobby the board to approve a capital plan. I
We're
mean, Jerry,
trying-
Jerry's trying
I'm at
everything
every meeting
possible.
doing that, Aug.
you know?
We're trying, Augie.
I mean, you see how much Jerry's doing to try to get them to approve it. They just won't budge.
I know, it's very frustrating.
To be continued for sure. We'll make a motion to adjourn.
I make a
Do we have a motion
motion.
to adjourn?
I
I
second.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, good night, all.
Great.
Good night.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you
Good night,
so much.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Right,
Bye-bye.
bye.